Dan, it's January. What would January be without a head coaching search? It's kind of interesting. The Browns focusing more on guys with NFL experience. You can make the case Freddie Kitchens had some, but it seems like they're more honed in on getting a guy that has been a coordinator, has had some success at that higher level.
Yeah, that was the thing with Freddie. He had only been a coordinator for 8 games. I mean, his resume was so thin that John Dorsey had to say a number of times, you see him call plays on the 4th preseason game. So that's probably when the red flag should have gone up for all of us. But they're looking for guys who have some experience, who have shown some leadership. Jimmy Haslam ruled out Urban Meyer yesterday, but the key there is he said right now. So, if this maybe goes sideways or something, I wouldn't rule anything out for this franchise, but right now it's about guys with that NFL experience, guys who have done it at this level.
So we know for certain that Mike McCarthy has been interviewed. We know that Greg Roman has been interviewed. We know that Eric Bieniemy is being interviewed. There's a common theme there.
Yeah.
So what do you, as you sit back and kind of listen, and again, you've heard far more of this than I have, and thankfully I haven't heard it a lot. What does it appear? Does it appear that they want an offensive mind that can kind of mold Baker Mayfield? Is that?
It seems early on that's where they're leaning, right? With Mike McCarthy, a guy that worked with Aaron Rodgers for a long time, Greg Roman, who of course built that offense in first San Francisco and now Baltimore. And I would be curious to see what he could do with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in the Browns' backfield around Baker Mayfield, even though he's a different quarterback than Lamar. And then of course Eric Bieniemy, who comes from Kansas City, is not the play caller there, but he is the offensive coordinator, handles the installs, and really seems to have a lot of those leadership traits you look for. I'm really curious about a guy like him. But then they're going to go to San Francisco, and they're going to talk to Robert Saleh, who's the defensive coordinator there. He's really the one defensive guy kind of on this list right now, but they're also going to probably take advantage and talk to some other guys down there who maybe could be potential coordinators, potential position coaches, things like that. Mike McDaniel's a guy that has worked for the Browns in the past. Maybe he becomes an offensive coordinator for whoever they hire as a head coach. So that's really... they're casting a very wide net, and I think that's a good thing because last year they really didn't cast a very wide net.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Last year they didn't interview Mike McCarthy. They didn't interview Josh McDaniel, and it sounds like Josh McDaniel is kind of the main guy. Do you think they're putting too many eggs in that basket? Because immediately when they said the name Josh McDaniel, it was like, well, he'd never come there with John Dorsey as a GM.
Yeah, I think they really like Josh McDaniels. I think he's the guy that the Haslams have really liked, for a while. But he's sort of bided his time. And after what happened in Denver, he went back to New England, has rebuilt his reputation. It obviously took a hit when he went to Indianapolis and decided to walk away from that job at the very last minute. Things worked out okay for the Colts, but Chris Ballard, the GM there, is very good friends with John Dorsey. So I don't know that those two ever could have worked together. If Josh McDaniels is ready, I think he's an intriguing name. But there's risk there, because what if he does it again? What if he takes the job and then a couple days later he's like, what, I don't know if I want to leave New England all of a sudden. But maybe the time is right because Tom Brady is looking a little bit older. The Patriots are looking a little bit shakier. You never leave either of those things for dead. You never leave Brady or the Patriots for dead. But maybe the time is right for McDaniels to move on, and I do think he really liked Baker Mayfield coming out.
The other thing is Bill Belichick is getting up there in age, and at some point you kind of get the sense that he may step away when Tom Brady does. Does he really have it in him to go find another guy like Tom Brady?
Yeah, exactly. and so then if you're Josh McDaniels, you're kind of weighing, okay, do I want to stay in New England? Maybe he's the heir apparent in New England, but is New England going into a rebuild, which is a crazy thing to say after what we've seen from them over the last 20 years. But he's got to weigh some things. If he maybe could take over that job, does he want to come home to Cleveland? It's hard to coach at home. I think we know that. If you win, it's spectacular. But if you lose, all that goodwill is out the window.
And the thing is Cleveland any more difficult than dealing with the Boston or the East Coast media? I mean, really?
No, I think Cleveland is, when it comes to football, as big a market as there is. The way this football team is covered, it's absolutely insane. There's some markets where you go and you wonder if anybody covers the team some days. Mike Prefer, the special teams coach, his first press conference this year, he goes up to the podium, there's a huge crowd there, and he says something along the lines, you guys know I'm just the special teams coach, right? Like, it was never like this in Minnesota. So that's sort of, Cleveland is a different animal in that sense.
Is there anybody that's kind of like a dark horse candidate that you would say, hey, keep your ear out for a guy like like the. And it might be McCarthy, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's one of the guys we talked about. One name we didn't mention is Kevin Stefanski. I wouldn't call him a dark horse. He's probably one of the favorites. He was a finalist last year. He'll probably be a finalist again this year. But I think that makes maybe, Greg Roman could be a dark horse. I think maybe those are sort of the names. Eric Bieniemy, a dark horse. Some of these early names they're interviewing are probably the dark horses for this job because the focus, I think, for a lot of fans and a lot of us is on, okay, is Stefanski going to get another real shot at this? And then is Josh McDaniels the guy that they're after? And then everybody beyond those two is kind of, okay, let's see what happens.
Are you concerned that it's Paul DePodesta that's in charge of it, or is that more a function of, the owner wants to stay true to the process? Because last time, they went through the process, we found out, and John Dorsey said, well, that was all nice and good, but this is the guy we're going with.
I think it's fair to be nervous about Paul DePodesta just because he's never really done this in the football sense. He's been in the NFL now since 2016, which is still pretty new. So I think it's fair to be a little concerned, but you hope that what happens is if you're going to put this in Paul DePodesta's hands, okay, let it be in his hands. And the names he comes up with, pick off that list. Don't go rogue. Don't say, yeah, I know you guys are saying Kevin Stefanski's the guy, but we want Freddie Kitchens. You've got to trust this process. You've got to say, all right, this is who we came up with. And nobody's going to swoop in at the last minute and say, yeah, but this guy really blew me away in that interview. You've got to trust what you're putting in place.
And the other thing is it's not as critical that you have football knowledge when you're hiring a head football. It's not like you're going to have.
You're hiring the guys with football knowledge.
Exactly.
That's the job.
You gotta find a guy that can be a leader in charge of things and connect with his team. You don't have to know the X's and O's. So I guess from that standpoint, DePodesta has hired a number of baseball guys.
Yeah.
It's different sport, but you're looking for similar traits.
You've got to be a leader, right? I mean, that's sort of the buzzword, and it was sort of funny yesterday when Jimmy Haslam sat up there and laid out, these are the, 5 things we're looking at. It was like leadership, knows football, and, well, of course, every team is looking for that stuff. But, yeah, I mean, those are the things you're looking for. You're looking for someone who can come in and lead this football team and be a strong voice for your locker room.